14-year-old girl that came to Ireland to seek refuge has been found in a place where dirty old men reside. Now, I have done lots of investigations into the different types of shipping of people. Now, when I say shipping of people, I think you can read between the lines in what I'm saying. I have to be very, very careful with my words. Not just in Ireland, but all across the world, there's certain topics that are just not favoured. And I always say to people, if you want to know who controls you, or you want to know the truth, look at who and what you can't speak about. And there is the direction you need to look. So a young girl has been found in Ireland. She came to Ireland to seek refuge, and she was found in a place where dirty old men reside. Now, throughout my time on YouTube, I've done many amateur investigations. I'm not a professional into the shipping of people all around the world. Now, I'm going to take you back before we get into this article. I want to take you back and to show you a common denominator between all the cases, and one case in particular that I investigated last year. And this case, so the common denominator between this case and the case that I investigated last year, that were completely separate and in two separate countries, one in Ireland and one in the United States of America. So the case I looked into last year was of a guy called Feature Man. He's on YouTube. He had over 500,000 subscribers. Now he's under 500,000 subscribers. I think he's actually lost about 50,000 subscribers after what came out about him. Now, Feature Man back in the 1970s was convicted of a crime against nature. He was convicted in the 1970s. And a crime against nature back then meant that homosexuality, doing bad things with children, and doing bad things with animals in that nature would have come under a crime against nature. Now, whenever he came onto YouTube, people looked into his life and his past history, and they searched them up, and they found, and his name's Thomas Willett, by the way, Thomas Willett. So he gave out his real name. People done a back search on him, and they found that in the 1970s he was convicted of a crime against nature. Now, he came out with a confession video, and he tried to say he was convicted because he was a gay man. But that wasn't the case whatsoever. Even though in the 1970s it was illegal, he wasn't actually convicted on that. He was convicted on doing terrible things to 14-year-old boys. And he tried to say, because the trial took place whenever the boys were 18, that it was consensual. But whenever he committed the crimes, they were 14. But that's not the point that I'm trying to make. That's just a bit of the backstory. Now, he got access to these children in a place called Child Haven in Las Vegas. Child Haven is still today is a place where young children go to seek refuge if they come from abused homes, or the state puts them in the car. And one common denominator between all these situations in regards to kids, not all of them, a lot of them, is that predators get access to these children via the social services or the children's homes. Child Haven, TUSLA. TUSLA is just basically the same thing as Child Haven. Now, I'm not saying that TUSLA or Child Haven are complicit in doing that. It could just be that a person, a predator who wants access to children, has went that direction and seen a vulnerability within TUSLA or within Child Haven and went for it and got the job there. Now, when it came to Feature Man, he was able to take these young people back to his house because it was the 1970s. There wasn't the safeguarding they have today. Now, you would think in 2024, when it comes to TUSLA and it comes to modern day child agencies, that they would have a higher screening service, or at the very least, because there's a computer database, that there would be regular checks to make sure that them checks are up to date, or even a separate body to come in completely unbiased that's connected away from this. But imagine this like a drug testing agency that comes in that are separate from the government, that are separate from the sports agency, that comes in and tests to make sure that the athletes are clean. But in the case of Tusla or Child Haven, they come in and they do the background checks completely separate from the government agency or the private owned agency or the charity agency to make sure that the people that are working there are 100% legit. That's not the case though. You have idle idle car idle car services that have now been, it's not allegedly, because the article that I read didn't say allegedly. They stated that they fabricated idle services, basically fabricated background checks for people that were working there that would be working around vulnerable children. You have to ask yourself, why? And those checks were going directly back to Tusla. So Tusla thought that the people working around these children were 100% screened and safe. Now, we can never be 100%, but when the checks come back, I'm sure that they would be deep checks, even if you had allegations of doing anything to children, that you couldn't get those jobs. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But the article we're going to read now is absolutely, I mean, there's no way of explaining it. And there's the only way I can explain this to you is this indicates a massive, either at the very least, government negligence or something more sinister and nefarious. Is this not a resigning matter? 14-year-old girl shipped to Ireland was found in a place where dirty old men reside. Now I have to change the words because obviously, you know, this is the world that we're living in. We basically can't speak the truth. The Department of Children, Equality, Integration and Youth is putting children in unregulated accommodation with unvetted staff. Deputy Pater Toybin has told the DAL. With Antu leader pressing Minister Roderick O'Gorman on whether he should resign. Deputy Toybin says that government neglect is placing vulnerable children in real danger. The Meath TD said he has asked Minister O'Gorman the number of companies which had been contacted by Tusla to provide special emergency accommodation for children in care, and the amount paid to each company in the past 10 years and to date in 2024. He pointed to one case reported in October 2023 of a 14-year-old girl who was shipped to Ireland from West Africa and was abducted by a criminal gang. Extra.ie reported at the time how the gang was tracking her movements within minutes of her entering state care. The harrowing case saw the child found over a year ago locked in a bad place where dirty old men reside, where she had been forced to work as a certain slave. Details of the shocking case came as figures last year revealed that 17 out of 38 minors who went missing from the state care after arriving here unaccompanied remained unaccounted for. Now that's just shocking alone. The fact that that can even happen, and the fact that there's direct links to idle care with this is not surprising. If you have a company that is, or people inside the company that is fabricating checks, and then there's cases like this, well, all you have to do is put 2 and 2 together. And what does that make? It makes 4. But a lot of these people will say, well, 2 and 2 makes 55. We're not stupid. We know what goes on here. And we know that this isn't just an isolated case in Ireland, and this goes on all around the world. Remember the days before that movie came out, Sound of Freedom, where if you spoke about these things, you were called a whack job conspiracy theorist? Well, here's basically the proof for you that this stuff actually goes on. And there's a direct link to this between the open border policies that Ireland has. So think about it. If people can come in here, they tell us 70% of the people who come in here to seek refuge in Ireland, i.e. refugees, rip up their passports because they don't want to be identified. You would have to ask the question, why are they doing that? Why do they not want to be identified? Because Ireland is seen as an easy touch. And think about it. If you were this way inclined and you were into human shipping, then you would see Ireland as a hub because of the open door policies and the fact that you can come in here and they don't even need to know who you are. And in some cases, they will give you an Irish identification card. So you can come from a place with no identification somewhat prove that you came from that company and actually get an identification in Ireland. This to me is clear negligence from the government, and that's at the very least. My question is it set up this way for things like this to happen? It came after it emerged this week that the state agency spent 14 million placing vulnerable children in unregulated emergency accommodation, which later had to be stopped after an internal audit flagged issues. The Minister's department has admitted to me through replies to parliamentary questions that it is placing children in special emergency accommodation that is unregulated, staffed by third-party providers and rented. How much is this department paying these companies? Mr. Toybin said.
And that 90 million euros has been spent by your department so far in terms of special emergency arrangements. Now, last month alone, 22 children went missing from state care. We know previously of a 14-year-old girl who was abducted by a criminal gang within minutes of being placed with TUSLA, and she was found 1 year later locked in her.
So you need to know this. The young girl was abducted within minutes after being put into TUSLA's car. So you'd have to ask yourself, how was that possible? How were they able to track her? Now, obviously, we're living in 2024. Tracking people, you can just do it with a phone. But after she was put into TUSLA's car, my question is, when she was put into TUSLA's car, did TUSLA then put her into the car of Idle Car Services? And was there an unscreened person that was, well, a fabricated screened person, should I say? Was that person the perpetrator in this? This is the investigation that we need, and these are the answers that we need. Something tells me, though, we're not going to get those answers.
Brothel. I tried to raise these matters with you, but you don't listen. A retired judge, Judge Sims, tried to raise these matters with you, but you deleted his files, citing GDPR. A whistleblower.
So you have to ask yourself, why would anybody want to delete files around this? Why would you want to delete correspondence around any of this? You'd want to be 100% open about this. For me, if anybody's going to delete files that could lead to any type of a conviction or the answers to what's happening to these children, and you're deleting files, and that's basically, you're stopping justice, then there needs to be definite criminal ramifications for that.
Lord tried to make a protected disclosure in relation to unvetted care workers. TUSLA tried to refuse that, but only the commissioner has ruled now that they have to accept it. Last week on RTE Radio, TUSLA CEO stated that staff and SEAs were absolutely vetted. Now we know from an article in the Irish Times yesterday that one company was providing falsified vetting documents to TUSLA, and that an internal TUSLA report in July found that staff did not have up-to-date Garda clearance. The name of that company...
Well, that's said in the Dáil now, so there's no going back from that. That's now a registered fact, and there's no getting away from this. So this was happening, and my question is, was this a direct result of the negligence that TUSLA had and Idle Car Services? Was this a direct result of this? Because 2 and 2 makes 4. Think about it. Children are coming in. As I said, there was like 30, I think, don't quote me, but 30 children have went missing that they came here unaccompanied, and they don't know where they are. And then there's the 14-year-old girl that was found in a place where dirty old men reside. When you think about that, the children that are coming in, are some of the children being shipped here for a nefarious reason? That's the question. And with the evidence that I'm seeing right here with Idle Car Services fabricating checks, or employees fabricating checks to get certain people into the job, would be an indication that there is a nefarious reason for that. If this was a private investigator, or if there was an internal investigation, I do believe this is what they would come up with. Okay, they mightn't be able to point the finger at an individual person, or, we would have to accept that, there's no evidence, but we're not stupid here. I'm not saying this is fact. I'm just saying my opinion is that there is a nefarious reason for why the checks were fabricated, and there's a direct correlation between that and the children and that child that was found in that place and the children that are missing.
Was Ideal Care. I understand that there's an Garda investigation into that matter. My question to you, Minister, is have you ever met with the owner of that company?
Minister. I don't believe that I have, Deputy, but I can...
I have in my hand, Minister, a document which shows that the owner of this company, which was investigated for alleged falsifying of vetting documents and received millions from the state with regards to the unregulated care of vulnerable children, was on the same committee as yourself before.
So why would you lie about that? And why is he saying alleged? Because it came out. The internal investigation was done. TUSLA came out with the information. It's not alleged. And why did he lie about being around the CEO of that company? Why would you do that? The only reason that you lie is whenever you're trying to save your own skin or you're afraid. That's why people lie.
When you were a councillor in your constituency, yourself and Paul Reeves, who went on to become the CEO of the HSE, both sat on a committee quarter after quarter, the Joint Policing Committee, with this individual. And I would ask you the question, have you ever spoken to him about the provision of care? That's the first thing. The second thing is, why are you underfunding the voluntary and the regulated sectors? And that is at the heart of this situation. They cannot provide the necessary places because they are underfunded, Minister. And, you know...
And at the same time, they're allowing droves of fighting fit men, some armed with a dangerous ideology, to come in here. And as soon as they arrive, they're given a hotel, which is accommodation, food, clothes, a phone, and in some cases, if you're here a while, they give you a car. I believe, don't quote me on the car part, but I've heard that some of them are given cars. Now, you'd have to ask yourself, if you listen to my last video, TUSLA put 14-year-olds, sorry, I don't know if they were 14, but they put teenagers on mattresses in what they called substandard conditions, while there is men who come in here, not of Ireland, that are given hotels to stay in. There's a massive imbalance in Ireland right now. So what do you think? Do you think that this is all innocent and there's nothing to see here, and maybe they're just coincidence? This is just one big coincidence that TUSLA has hired idle car services, which then later on basically was found out to be fabricating background checks for certain employees, or certain employees who were supposed to do the background checks fabricated the checks, or the employees coming in had fabricated checks and were helped by other certain employees. Do you think that that's a coincidence between that and children going missing in Ireland? And then is there a direct link between that and the 14-year-old girl that was shipped into Ireland that was tracked by a criminal gang, and then within minutes she was taken from TUSLA's car? Do you think there's a direct link between that, or is that just a coincidence? Does 2 and 2 make 4, or does 2 and 2 make 55? You tell me, because there's definitely, at the very least, a negligence problem here. And as he said there, the money that gets pumped into the child services, that gets pumped into these places that are supposed to look after children, you say 90 million's a lot. It's not an awful lot if you look at the amount of money that the government is spending on housing refugees and migrants in Ireland. They are actively at the forefront, and that is their priority in Ireland, to house these migrants and refugees. And not only that, there is, just going but with the information that I've seen there's a direct link between the open door policy that Ireland has, i.e. you don't even need a passport to get in, and you just have to prove that you somewhat come from that country, that these children are coming in this way, and they're coming in for a nefarious reason. And actually, Ireland in itself could be a trafficking hub. These are the questions I have, and I have to just leave it up to yourselves to answer those questions or to come up with opinions. So, yeah, what's your opinion on it? I know my opinion. I can't really give it here. I can't say 100% because on certain platforms you can't do that. But Ireland definitely has a problem. What I will say is to the people who called everybody a conspiracy theorist prior to the Sound of Freedom and said that these things don't go on and this is just a, you know what, conspiracy theory, a Q conspiracy theory. Well, here's the proof. Little old Ireland is possibly facilitating the shipping of children and helping criminal gangs all around the world in their criminal enterprise. It's absolutely disgusting, guys. That's the end of the video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to smash the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And share, guys. The only way a channel grows is to share. So share, copy link the clipboard, send to your friend on Facebook or WhatsApp Messenger or whatever desired messaging service that you use. I am getting a lot of shares at the minute, so thank you very much. Thanks to everybody that donates in the Buy Me a Coffee. You're all beautiful people. You don't have to do that. This channel isn't monetized. I might monetize it in the future, but just for now, I like the freedom that I'm getting, the things that I can speak about. If you do think I'm worth it, you can use the link in the description. There's the Buy Me a Coffee link, but you don't have to. I would be doing this regardless. And if you want to go follow me on the free speech platforms, yeah, them links can be found in the description. Also, that's my Rumble and my X. So yes, that's it, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. Peace.